Hello, Peter Lange here, Senior Analyst Africa at Broadband. Today I want to show you two interesting graphs that we have produced recently as part of our research. They are about mobile broadband in Africa. Now this is a very hot topic right now. The mobile phone has already revolutionized telecommunications in Africa in terms of voice telephony. There's very little traditional fixed line infrastructure there, and we have seen tremendous growth rates in the mobile voice market over the past decade. Africa has been, and still is, the fastest growing region in the world in this regard, to the extent that many African markets are now approaching saturation levels, 100% penetration or more, in terms of the voice market. But we are now actually just at the beginning of a second, probably even more important growth wave here, and that is mobile broadband. With technologies such as 3G, HSPA and LTE moving towards 4G, it is now possible and affordable for Africans as well to access the internet with reasonable broadband speed through mobile devices. Broadband market penetration rates are still quite low in most African countries, in the single digits, but they are growing very fast now. There are two key enablers for this development that I want to talk to you about. One is the availability and the cost of international bandwidth. Now this graph here shows you the development in South Africa, but what happened here is now also happening in many other African countries, so it can serve as a good example. The blue line shows you the amount of international internet bandwidth available in the country. And as you can see, that started rising here in 2009 and then more dramatically from 2010, 2011 onwards to something around 200 gigabits per second that are now available in the country. At the same time, the red line shows you how the cost of international bandwidth came down at the same time. From around $20,000 US dollars per month for 1 megabit per second, down to only a few $100 per month for the same amount of bandwidth, 1 megabit per second. Now this is wholesale bandwidth, dedicated bandwidth that ISPs and other service providers buy from the international gateway provider. Why did this happen, this dramatic increase in available bandwidth and the dramatic fall in prices at the same time? This happened because more bandwidth became available, the supply side improved, and it was competitive bandwidth that was coming in. You see, up to 2009 there was only one international submarine fiber optic cable serving the entire country, the SAT3 cable, running from Europe to South Africa along the African west coast and on from there to India and the Far East. This cable was controlled by the incumbent Telkom South Africa, which kept the prices for bandwidth high and prevented the internet market from unfolding. Now in 2009, a second cable landed in the country, owned by different companies, and then a third cable in 2010, and then a fourth and a fifth here in 2011-2012. The amount of available international bandwidth increased dramatically, as we saw, and the prices came down dramatically. The prices had actually started falling already from 2005-2006, when it first became clear that there would be competition in the international bandwidth market in the near future. By now, these prices have fallen by about 90%, as we saw. You can also see from this graph how the mobile broadband technology evolution on the access network level went hand in hand with this development in the international bandwidth market. 3G mobile broadband, UMTS, was launched here back in 2004 when bandwidth was still very expensive. And of course the market never moved beyond the few high-value early adopter users at that stage. Then came HSDPA with 1.8 megabits per second initially. But as these other international cables kept coming in one by one, higher and higher data rates were implemented. HSPA with 21 megabits per second here in 2009. Then 42 megabits per second in 2011. And the first commercial LTE service was launched in South Africa just last month in October 2012. The network operators are now actually under pressure to increase the data capabilities of their networks so that they don't run out of capacity. The data traffic demand is immense and it is turning into a real mass market. And across Africa, that means more than 1 billion people gaining access to the internet now for the first time. That's indeed a very big, very important development. Not just for the network operators themselves, who are struggling with low ARPU levels, average revenue per user in the voice market, but for the whole internet economy that follows, it is significant. Things like electronic commerce, online banking, online education, entertainment, advertising, to more than 1 billion potential consumers. The other key enabler for this broadband mass market in Africa is the emergence of smartphones that are available for less than $100 now. Some low-end models, some of them manufactured in Africa, by the way, by Chinese firms in Ethiopia, for example. Now, $100 seems to be a price point that is now enabling a lot more Africans to become internet users. The cost of a PC or laptop was too high for many, so that the smartphone is now becoming the internet access device of choice in Africa. We can see this in the second graph. Again, you have the same blue line as before, showing us the available international internet bandwidth in the country. And you can see from the green line here how especially smartphones have really taken off in the last 2 years, going from 2 million devices up to more than 5 million devices in just 2 years, between 2010 and now. We're looking at data here from one operator, the leading operator in South Africa, Vodacom. So that's already a smartphone penetration here of 18%, and it's growing very fast. While at the same time, as you can see here from the red line, dongles, USB modems, so devices typically used for a laptop use, have kind of flattened out here and haven't moved much beyond about 1 million devices, while smartphones are really taking off now. Now, in the rest of Africa, we are trailing this development a little bit. We at Vodacom estimate that the smartphone penetration across the whole continent is currently about 8%, but it is growing very fast everywhere, because the same international cables that we were looking at for South Africa before have actually brought vast amounts of internet bandwidth to many other African countries as well, through landing points in those countries. Thank you for listening, and keep watching this space. We are conducting a lot more exciting research into mobile broadband and smartphones in Africa, and we will have more presentations up here soon.